Dear children of class 9, today we will discuss from the English book Beheeve, chapter 5, The Snake and the Mirror. I am Mrs. Sithara. Good morning children. Today we will discuss about Snake and the Mirror, which is lesson 5 in 9th book. It is written by Vaikom Muhammad Bashir, fondly known as Bepur Sultan. He was an Indian independence activist and a writer of Malayalam literature. It is translated from Malayalam by V. Abdullah. Now we will read through the story. Has a snake ever coiled itself round any part of your body? A full-blooded cobra. All of us fell silent. The question came from a homeopath. The topic came up when we were discussing snakes. We listened attentively as the doctor continued with his tale. So here you can see the opening lines. The theme of the story is discussed here. And the author is asking, have you ever encountered a snake or a cobra? And has it coiled itself around any part of your body? Now we will read through. It was a hot summer night, about 10 o'clock. I had my meal at the restaurant and returned to my room. I heard a noise from above as I opened the door. The sound was a familiar one. One could say that the rats and I shared the room. Narrator says that it was a very hot summer night and about 10 o'clock. He finished his meal at a restaurant and was returning to his room. Then he heard a noise when he opened the door, which was very familiar to him because you can see rats were roaming around here and there in his room. I took off my box of matches and lighted the kerosene lamp on the table. He lighted a kerosene lamp. That means there was no light. Maybe the story is told very old times where there was no electricity, or maybe he was so poor that he couldn't afford an electrified house. The house was not electrified. It was a small rented room. Now the doctor itself says that the house was not having electricity and it was just a small rented room. I had just set up medical practice and my earnings were meager. Meager means very small in quantity. So he says he has just started his practice and his income was not that much. He had just started his medical practice and he had very less money. That is why he was living in such a shabby and dirty place. I had about 60 rupees in my suitcase. He tells the writer that he had just 60 rupees in his suitcase. Along with some shirts and dhotis, I also possessed one solitary black coat which I was then wearing. So along with some shirts and dhotis, he had, possessed means he had one solitary black coat. Solitary means only one single black coat which he was wearing at that time. Dhoti is a kind of dress that men wear in India. So the doctor says to the author that he had some shirts and some dhotis to wear and had only one black coat. Why the doctor is telling the writer and his friends all these things? He just wanted to tell them that when he started his medical career, he was very, very poor. I took off my black coat, white shirt and not so white vest and hung them up. So the doctor says that he removed his black coat, his white shirt and not so white vest. The vest was not very white. That means it was dirty. I opened the two windows in the room. It was an outer room with one wall facing the open yard. Yard is something like a garden or a veranda. It was a room which was on the outside, and one wall of that faced the garden. It had a tiled roof with long supporting gables that rested on the beam over the wall. Gable is the upper part of a wall below a sloping roof. He says that his roof was a tiled roof with supporting gables, that gables rested on a beam over the wall. He says that it had a tiled roof and it had long supporting gables, and the gables rested on the beam over the wall. There was no ceiling. There was a regular traffic of rats to and from the beam. And he says that through the beam on which the gables were rested, from that so many rats came in and out of the room. I made my bed and pulled it close to the wall. I lay down, but I could not sleep. The doctor made his bed and he pulled it close to the wall and he tried to sleep. I got up and went out to the veranda for a little air, but the wind god seemed to have taken time off. To take a time off means to take a break, take a holiday. It means that it was very dry, there was no wind at all, and he was feeling very sultry. The doctor had gone out to get some fresh air. Why? Because he didn't have fan in the room. But since the wind god had taken a day off, there was no wind, there was no breeze at all. I went back into the room and sat down on the chair. I opened the box beneath the table and took out a book, the Materia Medica. Since doctor could not get sleep, he went out for some fresh air, but he couldn't get, so he came back into the room and he sat down on the chair. Next to the chair was a table. Underneath the table was a book, Materia Medica. He took out that book. Students, Materia Medica is a book which has the therapeutic properties of any substance that is used for healing. That is a book on the treatment. I opened it at the table on which stood the lamp and a large mirror. A small comb lay beside the mirror. So the doctor opened the book and kept it on the table, which had a lamp and a large mirror, and a small comb was there just beside the mirror. One feels tempted to look into a mirror when it is near one. I took a look. The doctor says that once you have a mirror in front of you, you are tempted to look onto that. He also felt like looking into the mirror. In those days, I was a great admirer of beauty and I believed in making myself look handsome. The doctor says he also felt tempted to look into the mirror, and what he saw, he was an admirer of beauty. Since he was very young age, he was an admirer of beauty and he wanted to make himself look very handsome. I was unmarried and I was a doctor. I felt I had to make my presence felt. The doctor says he was unmarried and he was very young, and so he was an eligible bachelor. I picked up the comb and ran it through my hair and adjusted the parting so that it looked straight and neat. So he looked into the mirror and with the comb he tried to adjust his hair. He tried to tidy up his hair. Again I heard that sound from above. So as he was making his hair set, again he heard the sound from above. I took a close look at my face in the mirror. So he started looking himself in the mirror. I made an important decision. I would shave daily and grow a thin moustache to look more handsome. After seeing himself in the mirror, he took an important decision. What was this decision? To shave daily and also to grow a thin moustache so that he will look more handsome. He thought that he'll look better, he'll look more handsome with that. I was, after all, a bachelor and a doctor. A bachelor is a man who has never been married. The doctor says that he's unmarried and he's a doctor again and again. He wants to stress on the fact that he's a doctor and he is an eligible bachelor. I looked into the mirror and smiled. It was an attractive smile. Again, he's looking into the mirror and he's smiling at himself. I made another earth-shaking decision. I would always keep that attractive smile on my face to look more handsome. Earth-shaking means very, very important. Another thing he decided was he would always smile because he thought he looked better when he smiled. I was, after all, a bachelor and a doctor too on top of it. So children, what are the decisions the doctor is making to make him look more attractive? He decided to shave daily, to grow a thin mustache, and also to smile always. On top of it means to add on. He was saying he is a bachelor and he was also a doctor. Again came that noise from above. I got up, paced up and down the room. Paced means to walk. So after getting up from the chair, he started walking up and down the room. Then another lovely thought struck me. I would marry. Then after getting up, he started walking, and then he is having another idea to get married. I would get married to a woman doctor who had plenty of money and a good medical practice. Whom will he get married to? A woman doctor. A doctor who is rich and who's got a good medical practice. She had to be fat for a valid reason. Valid means logical or justifiable. Doctor decided he will get married to a woman doctor who had plenty of money and had a good practice. On top of that, the woman had to be fat, and there was a reason for that. Why the woman had to be fat? He says, if I made some silly mistake and needed to run away, she should not be able to run after me and catch me. He says that if he's doing a mistake and if his wife is chasing him down, if she is fat, she will not be able to catch him. That was a reason, logical reason the doctor gave in marrying a fat woman. With such thoughts in my mind, I resumed my seat in the chair in front of the table. Resume means to continue after a pause. So thinking all these things, he again went and sat on the chair. There were no more sound from above. Suddenly there came a dull thud as if a rubber tube had fallen to the ground. Surely nothing to worry about. There were no sound from above, but suddenly something came down from above. The sound felt like a rubber tube had fallen from the above. The doctor was not worried about it. Even so, I thought I would turn around and take a look. But he thought, okay, let me turn around and have a look at what is that. No sooner had I turned than a fat snake wriggled over the back of the chair and landed on my shoulder. Wriggled means crawled. As soon as he turned and had a look, there was a fat snake crawling under the back of the chair, and it landed on his shoulders. The snake's landing on me and my turning were simultaneous. Simultaneous means happening at the same time. His turning and the snake landing on him was at the same time. I didn't jump, I didn't tremble, I didn't cry out. That was doctor's reaction to see a snake on his shoulder. He did not jump, he didn't shake, he never cried out. He did not panic. There was no time to do any such thing. He says that it happened so fast that he didn't have any time to react. The snake slithered along my shoulder and coiled around my left arm above the elbow. Slither is the twisting and crawling motion of the snake. Have you seen a snake moving? It moves in a curved manner, this way, that way. That is called as slithering. The doctor says the snake moved around his shoulder and coiled around his left arm above the elbow. Coiling is going in round and round around the elbow. The hood was spread out and its head was hardly 3 or 4 inches from my face. A hood is a head of the snake, and it will spread its hood when it is about to attack something. And the doctor says he could see the head of the snake. It was spread out, and the snake was just 3 or 4 inches from his face. If the doctor had moved, the snake would have attacked him. It would not be correct to say merely that I sat there holding my breath. He just sat there holding his breath. That's what he did. I was turned to stone. He became like a statue. But my mind was very active. Even though he was sitting still like a statue, his mind was very, very active. It was working very fast. The door opened into darkness. The room was surrounded by darkness. In the light of the lamp, I sat there like a stone image in the flesh. The doctor says there was darkness all around the room. Outside also it was dark, and he sat there just like a stone in the light of the lamp. Only the light was there, light of the lamp was there, and he sat there just like a stone. He was alive, but he was turned into a statue. I felt then the great presence of the Creator of this world and this universe. God was there. When his life was in danger, he had the enlightenment that God was there, God is there. There was nothing he could do to save his life. The only thing he could do was think of God. Suppose I said something and he did not like it. I tried in my imagination to write in bright letters outside my little heart the words, "Oh God." So in his heart, the doctor was trying to pray to God to save his life, to save himself from this danger. There was some pain in my left arm. It was as if a thick leaden rod, no, a rod made of molten fire, was slowly but powerfully crushing my arm. The arm was beginning to be drained of all strength. What could I do? The doctor says as the snake had coiled itself around his arms, he felt a crushing, powerful crushing in his arms, and it was beginning to be drained of all its strength. He felt that he has lost the strength of his arms. He felt like his arm was crushed by a leaden rod or a rod made of molten fire. He was utterly helpless. He couldn't do anything about it. At my slightest movement, the snake would strike me. Strike means to attack. Death lurked 4 inches away. Lurk means to hide. The death was just 4 inches away from him. Suppose it struck. What was the medicine I had to take? There were no medicines in the room. I was but a poor, foolish, and stupid doctor. I forgot my danger and smiled feebly at myself. Feebly means weakly. Doctor started thinking, what would he do if the snake struck him? Is there any medicine with him? Is there any medicine available there? Then he understood that there were no medicines in the room, and he came to the realization that he was a poor, foolish, and a stupid doctor. Sensing that, he had a feeble smile. He smiled at himself. Here you can see the doctor is cursing himself. He was feeling very weak, and he took pity on himself and he smiled at himself. So he started smiling at himself. It seemed as if God appreciated that. He says that when he understood his foolishness, it felt as if God was appreciating him. There was some change in his situation. The doctor's life was saved. How it was saved? The snake turned its head. It looked into the mirror and saw its reflection. The snake turned away from him, and when it turned away from him, there was a mirror, and the snake saw his reflection in it. The snake saw its reflection in the mirror. I do not claim that it was the first snake that had ever looked into a mirror, but it was certain that the snake was looking into the mirror. The doctor says he does not know whether any snake has looked into the mirror, but this snake was certainly looking at the mirror because it was looking very curious at it. Was it admiring its own beauty? Was it trying to make an important decision about growing a mustache, or using eyeshadow and mascara, or wearing a vermilion spot on its forehead? Was a snake admiring itself looking at the mirror, or was it trying to make an important decision like the doctor had made about growing a mustache or using eyeshadow and mascara? Vermilion spot is a red color bindi that a married woman wear on their forehead. So doctor is comparing, like he had thought, is a snake thinking of growing a mustache or making it look beautiful by using an eyeshadow or mascara, wearing a vermilion spot, etc. I did not know anything for certain. What sex was the snake? Was it male or female? I will never know, for the snake unwound itself from my arm and slowly slithered into my lap. From there, it crept onto the table and moved towards the mirror. Perhaps it wanted to enjoy its reflection at closer quarters. Closer quarters means to get a closer look. Doctor says that he don't know anything for certain whether the snake was a male or a female, and he will never know. He knows that the snake had unwound itself from his arms and was slowly slithering into his lap. And from his lap, it moved to the table and towards the mirror. Maybe it wanted to enjoy its reflection very closely. I was no mere image cut in granite. Granite is a kind of stone, and the doctor says that he was no more a statue. I was suddenly a man of flesh and blood. All of a sudden, doctor felt alive. He was no more a statue. He was a man who is living. He was a man who had life. Still holding my breath, I got up from the chair. I quietly went out through the door into the veranda. From there, I leapt into the yard and ran for all I was worth. All I was worth means with all strength he had. The doctor, still holding his breath, got up from the chair and quietly went through the door outside into the veranda and into the yard, and then he ran for his life. Phew! Each of us heaved a sigh of relief. Somebody asked, "Doctor, is your wife very fat?" The people who were listening to his story felt relieved that the doctor's life was saved. Then somebody from the crowd asked him, "Doctor, is your wife very fat?" "No," the doctor said. "God willed otherwise. My life companion is a thin, reedy person with the gift of a sprinter." A reedy person is a thing or a person resembling a tall, thin-leaved plant of the grass family. In grass family, there is a plant called as reed. It is very thin and tall. So doctor says that unlike his imagination of having a fat wife, God had thought otherwise, and he got married to a reedy person, a thin and tall person. Not only his life partner was a thin person, she was a sprinter also. That means she could run very, very fast. Someone else asked, "Doctor, when you ran, did the snake follow you?" Somebody else asked the doctor, "When you ran away for your life, did the snake follow you?" The doctor replied, "I ran and ran till I reached a friend's house. Immediately I smeared oil all over myself and took a bath. I changed into fresh clothes." So he says he didn't know whether the snake was following him. He just ran for his life from there till he reached his friend's house. Once reaching his friend's house, he immediately smeared. Smeared means applied oil all over himself, and he took a bath and changed into fresh clothes. The next morning at about 8:30, I took my friend and one or two others to my room to move my things from there. He says the next day he took his friend and one or two others to his room to take the things from there. He went there to take his belongings along with his friends. But we found we had little to carry. Little to carry means there was nothing left. Some thief had removed most of my things. The room had been cleaned out, but not really. The thief had left behind one thing as a final insult. The doctor was robbed of his belongings. There was nothing left except for one thing, which was a final insult for him. The thief had left one thing behind. "What was that?" I asked. The writer asked him, what was that which the thief had left out? The doctor said, "My vest, the dirty one. The fellow had such a sense of cleanliness. The rascal could have taken it and used it after washing it with soap and water." The thief had left his vest, which was dirty, in the room. He did not take it because he had a sense of cleanliness. He was a very clean man. The doctor said he could have used it. If he had taken it, he could have used it after washing it up, after cleaning it up with soap and water. A rascal is a mischievous person or a cheeky person, a child or a man. So he calls a thief a rascal. He could have taken it and used it after cleaning it with soap and water. After washing it, he could have used it. Someone asked the doctor, "Did you see the snake the next day, doctor?" The doctor laughed. Someone from the crowd asked him, "Did you see the snake the next day, the following day? Did he see the snake?" The doctor laughed. "I have never seen it since. It was a snake which was taken with its own beauty." Taken with means highly attracted by. Hearing the question, the doctor laughed. He said that he has never seen it since, and it was a snake. He says that it was a snake which was smitten by its own beauty. That's how the story comes to an end. It is a hilarious story, a funny story of a snake and a mirror. Thank you for watching. For more videos, subscribe to our channel. all of you stay home to be safe in the period of pandemic. Please subscribe, share and like our CBSE channel on the YouTube, online CBSE classes. Thank you.